Hey rum fans, welcome back to the channel. Now in our Barbados deep dive, now we're looking at the XO rums that are available here in the UK. There might be some others around the world, but these are the 4 Barbados XOs we've got around there. I'm going to do each of these 4 as individual videos. I'm going to start off with the cheapest one, which is actually the Doorlys XO. And then we're kind of going to work up the price range. Now, if you're just joining me, remember the whole point of these deep dives is so I can learn a bit more about all the rums that are available from a specific country. This month, we're looking at Barbados rums. And then I'm trying to find, if possible, my favourites carry through. Is there one all-rounder that I love for neat and cocktails, or do I have to narrow it down to 2 rums? At the moment, out of will be the sort of the 10th, 11th, 12th and 13th rum that I've looked at from Barbados. At the moment, out of the ones previously, still I've got these 2 rums here, and we're kind of working up sort of the youngest ones and in cheapest ones up to the oldest ones. So at the moment, my favourite neat sipper is that 5-year-old from Plantation, but the cocktail wise, I do kind of like that Doorlys 5-year-old in cocktails. And talking to cocktails, regular viewers, you'll know this, but how I kind of judge this, yes, I'm going to do a neat tasting of this. I'm actually going to add a little bit of sugar to do a very, very quick rum fashioned, but then the cocktail of the month, to see how all these rums work in a cocktail, I've just got a very, very simple rum punch, like lime, sugar, and water, essentially. Rum and water, no bitters. I just want to let the rum shine through in that sort of traditional old school punch way. Now, long-term viewers, I keep saying that a lot, but long-term viewers will know that I've actually not got that much love for this rum. This rum doesn't even live on my back bar. This rum lives on the shelf, tucked away right at the bottom there. I very rarely get it out. Probably the last time I got it out was to do a video, which was God knows how long. It's just not a rum that has appealed to me. It's too sherry forward and too for me. But I'm coming at this as a complete blank canvas. I'm going up the ranges. I kind of doing these in batches. So my palate is acclimatizing and my palate is changing. So now coming back to this, will I appreciate it even more? Who knows? And just to touch on that kind of sherry thing a little bit more, generically speaking, I don't like sherry flavour. I don't mind sherry itself, but I don't like sherry flavoured rums, essentially. There is one exception, and it's a completely different style of rum as well, and it's the Ron Cube Añejo Suave from Cuba. It's a lighter rum, it's a column still rum, and the sherry, and I think because it's a little bit sweeter, I don't kind of bracket it in this sort of sense, and a little bit weaker, to be fair. I think it's the 38% rum, but the only sherry rum that I've ever encountered where I've thought, do you know what, that's quite nice, and I'll happily sip that or mix it. Everything else is just a bit And just to clarify, another thing that I've kind of learned over the last sort of year, 18 months as well, and that's why I do call them sherry flavoured rums, because although, take this rum for instance, Doorlys, Foursquare, and various other brands, you know, where we don't add dosage, we don't add anything to our rums. But the fact is, I mean, it's possible, but the fact is, when you get a sherry rum barrel, an ex-sherry barrel, I should say, they are quite wet, as in quite a bit of liquid still in them. And unless you take it to a cooper and rebuild the whole shell, like completely empty and rebuild the barrel, you're still going to get that sherry, that liquid. It may be a few litres. It may be, I've seen a couple of sherry barrels now, sherry butts, whatever you want to call them, with probably a good 5 litres of sherry still inside them, you know, and people will just add rum to it. So, you know, when I say sherry flavoured, that's how I mean. Unless a barrel's completely stripped by a cooper and kind of all the liquid's gone and it's just the wood that's sort of wet again and then be retoasted, unless they do that, if they're just filling sherry barrels straight up with rum, then the chances are there's going to be a hefty amount of sherry still in that barrel. As to what Foursquare do, I have no idea. I don't know whether it's a wet barrel that they add their rum to. I have no idea. But in past, you know, that's part of the reason why I've kind of not enjoyed this too much, because A, they do use Oloroso sherry in here, which isn't my favourite kind of sherry anyway. So it's an ex-Oloroso sherry cask. And secondly, you know, I think it's potentially been the Barbados rums. I just, you know, as I've said through this journey, I don't really appreciate, or haven't done until now, Barbados rums. So let's dive in. Let's give you the price comparison and let's get tasting. Now, I said I'd start with the cheapest. This is actually cheaper than the rum in the previous video. And because I've got, as I said in that video, this one up here, the Black Barrel, Mount Gay Black Barrel, because we don't know the ages of the rums that have gone in there, and we don't really know the ages of the rums that have gone into any of these XOs, to be fair. You know, XO doesn't mean a specific age. It could be anything from 1-year-old rum in there to whatever they've got lying around, a 12-year-old rum. I dare say for the prices, you know, we're probably talking mid-range, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old rums potentially going in there. But the point is, there's no age classification, so you can generically speaking, you can expect an average age of maybe 8 years old, a touch of older stuff, but actually a little bit of younger stuff in there as well. But none of them give you age statements, so we don't really know. Anyway, prices. This is a bottle that I've bought myself, I've had for ages. I will shout out when Master of Malt have gifted me a bottle. But Master of Malt prices, what you can expect to pay in the UK, £39. So £39. So again, as I say, a couple of quid cheaper than that Mount Gay Black Barrel up there. And just so you guys around the world understand what 38, so you don't have to go and convert yourself, £39 in the UK converts to roughly $47. 40, rounded up, 45 euros, 74 Australian dollars, and 64 Canadian dollars. So that's roughly what you're paying. As always, open invitation. Let us know how much you pay around the world. I know in the US, this is seen as quite a cheap rum. So I think that might shock quite a lot of you in the US of how much we actually pay for this. Just shy of £40, which was, what, just shy of $47 essentially. Now, diving into the aroma, sherry, sherry up top, and Oloroso sherry, that sort of dry, nuttier sort of sherry vibe, not a cream sherry or anything like that. You do pick this as a sort of a drier kind of sherry that's coming off there. It's Oloroso. You can, you know, I'm not a sherry buff. I know what it is. I know because it says Oloroso in there. If I didn't know, I would probably pick the sherry off the nose. I'm not saying I'd be able to pick the Oloroso, but I would sort of go, sort of doesn't smell like a sweet sherry or a cream sherry. It smells more dry. I think that sort of, because sherry is a sweet wine in sense, just because it's Oloroso is a drier type of sherry, it's still sweet compared to like a Fino or something like that. It is still quite sweet. So that does bring out different flavours. And I do actually get a little bit of coconut, a touch of possibly banana off there, but actually quite a lot of vanilla. There's a lot of vanilla coming off this nose. There's a potential bit of nuttiness on there as well, just minuscule in the back there. But as for anything else I'm getting off there, no. I think it's the sherry and the sherry and the vanilla that kind of overpowers everything. Yes, there's a little bit of coconut in there, but you know, for me, that just dominates. Those sort of 2, 3. I'd say those 3 things just kind of dominate for me. And then just to run you through what others have kind of smelt from this. Vanilla, yes. Woody, I think, I don't get woody as such. I don't get the barrel aging. I just get sherry, you know, so sherry aging. So that's where that comes from. Caramel, no. Vanilla. Sweet, yes. It smells sweet on there. Coconut, yes. Banana, potentially a little bit of banana in there, yes. Buttery, nutty, interesting. And then we've got barrel, apricot, no. Cinnamon, no. Dried fruit, dried apricot, toffee, leather, oak, no. It's those 3 flavours, as I said, that really dominate. Vanilla, little bit of coconut on there. But yeah, I tell you, you just can't get past that sherry. Let's have a little sip. Still not a pleasurable experience for me. It's actually not as sherry forward as I remember, but the sherry is still there. I was expecting it to be, from memory, I was expecting it to be a lot more sherry forward than what it is. But the sherry is still there, don't get me wrong. But I've just got this wood burn now going across the back of my tongue. Again, that's what puts me off, you know, heavily aged rums. And essentially Barbados rums, because they are proud of their aging. And if that's what you like, if you're coming from whiskey, especially if you're coming from whiskey, I understand why Barbados rums are the big draw for a lot of people, because a lot of people love that aging. I don't. I'm not a huge longer aged rum fan. And for me, it is that wood that's just on the back of my tongue there, which brings this peppery spice that just kind of like, oh no, I don't want that. I tell you what though, I am interested to add a tiny little bit of sugar to this, because I'm not sure I've ever done that actually. Like, I mean, but actually, I think it's Richard Seal himself actually recommends this as one of his, with the falernum. I forgot the drink now. Whatever, mental block. Whatever you had falernum to. Hang on, flip it out. Corn and oil. I think, actually, oh no, it's not there. But I think it's one of those rums that they do recommend you add the falernum to for a corn and oil. And I can potentially see that. I'm kind of interested to just try and sip this with that touch of sugar. There is, if you do swill it around your mouth a little bit, or coat your tongue and all that, I would say there's a little bit of a chocolatey vibe going on, but I struggle to pick out, I pick out sherry, but I struggle to pick out any fruit of any note. Is just wood, bitter toffee actually, that burnt toffee. The burnt toffee is coming through, more that than caramel. Sherry's definitely not as sweet as I remember it or thought it was. So I will sort of retract that. But I just don't, it is just that sort of wood that's really putting me off. To kind of give you what other people have kind of tasted as well on this. Vanilla, yeah. Woody, coconut, no, I'm not getting coconut. And that's been a popular choice as well. I'm definitely not getting coconut off that. Off the taste. Sherry, oak, yes. Peppery, yes. Rounded, yeah. Spicy, yes, I agree with that. Warm, dried dates, sweet, cinnamon, cloves. Cinnamon and clove, again, I think it's peppery. I think it's the wood that kind of overshadows that for me. Banana, toffee, burnt toffee, yes, agree with that. Banana, don't really get that. Leather, tropical fruits, dark chocolate. I do agree with that actually. There is a sort of dark chocolate there. And tannins and cream toffee. Let's dive in. Let's add a touch of sugar. Now that's interesting. That touch of sugar, and I'm talking the merest dribbles. The merest dribbles in, I think it was about 15 mil of rum I've put in there. Like a tiny time, not even talking about 2 mil. The merest dribbles of sort of cane sugar that I've put in there completely changes the whole complexion of that rum. And it's still not sweet. It doesn't make the sherry sweeter. Actually, what it does is bring out fruit. I'm quite surprised by that. It also brings out a bit of vanilla. But fruit, it's turned that into actually, the sherry's actually there on the finish. Weirdly, if this is going to make any sense to you at all, but actually now it tastes like a drier sherry. But I think that's potentially the fruit that's coming out and the vanilla that's there. The sugar has killed that peppery burn. Do you know what? I wouldn't say it's my favourite, but I could potentially get used to that as sort of like a rum fashion. Neat, no. It's never going to be a neat sipping rum for me. No, it's not even in my ballpark. But tiny bit of sugar, that's actually quite interesting. And then when we come to the rum fashioned, again, it's nice. It's even though it's 43%, it loses body. You know, I potentially have to add just a tiny bit more. So what I'm basically getting at, everything I've done at exactly the same ratios, but it just loses. It's the same as that sort of plantation. It's that kind of thing. The plantation 5-year-old, it loses the character. You lose the rum in that punch. It's only now it's starting. You've got a little bit more in there. It's coming through. It's, yeah. I still, at the moment, I know this is the first XO. I found a way to kind of finish the rum now, to kind of use it. I would potentially have that with a tiny bit of sugar in there. It's a simple, slightly, ever so slightly sweetened rum fashion, but I still don't think it dislodges those for what I want. A neat sipper and a cocktail rum. I think there's one rum later. I've got no idea about the 3 that's coming here. Well, the Plantation XO could be kind of interesting, but I think there is one rum coming later in the series that I think would, you know, get rid of both of those. But you know, they're just sitting there happily at the moment, ready for the next challenges.